Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. It is my day for the Envelope Project 2025. My day is the 10th and I share that day with Creating with Scraps, my artful crafts, and then there's me as well there. So the Envelope Project 2025 is a collaboration that's hosted by Line.Arrow and Tracy Fox Creative. For 10 days, there are a couple of people each day putting out a video or an Instagram post showing something they've created with envelopes. So the lovely Tracy Fox and Natalie from Line.Arrow have each put out a little kit, and it's a free one, and that's available on either of their Ko-fi sites, which I've linked down below. And that has an envelope with each kit and a pile of embellishments that you can use. You can mix and match them as well because they go together really nicely. Or you can use your own envelopes and their embellishments, or mix it up a bit, whatever you want to do. It's just about getting some envelopes and having some fun and showing each other what we make with them. And I love playing with envelopes in my journals, so this is just such a fun one to be a part of. So a big thank you to Natalie and Tracy for inviting me to be a part of this, because I am having heaps of fun with it. On the first day, which was the 7th, Tracy and Natalie both put out videos, so go and check those out. Their channels are linked below for you as well. Then on the 8th, we had Tina, Ideas and Embellishments, and Fraps and Scraps, and Bee Journal Creations. Now, I'm pretty sure Bee Journal Creations was an Insta post, but this calendar is available on Tracy Fox Creative website. There's a tab up the top which says the Envelope Project. You click on that, takes you straight to this calendar. You can click on the individual boxes and it will take you to that person's channel. And when their video is live, it will take you directly to the video. Just beware that there's different time zones involved, so people's videos pop up at different times of the day. So if you go to their channel and you don't see the video yet, just head back over a bit later and it should be up. Now, if you do make anything, be sure to add the hashtag the Envelope Project 25 on any of your social media sites so that we can all see what you've made. I have sped this up so it doesn't take so long for you to watch. Now, I have the envelope of Tracy's. I'm using Tracy's kit for my first envelope, and I'm doing some page flips. So I'm just scoring down the edges of the envelopes so I can fold them nicely. I have printed these out on cardstock. Now this is the full size envelope, and then I did 4 to a page to get the smaller size. Then I can fold all the sides over and give them a nice burnish flat. Thought I'd better speed it up or else you would have had to watch a 2-hour video. And a lot of faffing around. Also, I was up and down 10,000 times to the dog as well. So... my scoring's never like very good, so I always have to just adjust some of the little bits. So once that's done, I'll go and ink around all the edges that we're going to see of the envelopes. I think I just inked around all the edges inside and outside of my envelopes just to be sure. I'm using Walnut Stain as the brown ink for both of my projects. I also folded up the envelopes from Natalie's kit as well, just so they're ready to go for my next project. I had printed the bows there at 4 to a page, but it's still a little big for what I want to do, so I printed them out again. I think it was 9 to a page or something, just to get a smaller bow. So with all the embellishment pieces I want to use, I then go around and ink all of them as well. Now it's time to stick down the large envelope. Stick the bottom flap down to the two side flaps and it's ready to go. Just double check that I haven't stuck it to the inside there. Now comes the fun parts. So I love that little bow and it looks really cool on this little journal card. I have these glitter gel pens here. They're just cheap ones and I'm using those to just highlight some of the red areas on the bow. I do use it to go ahead and highlight some of the other ephemera pieces as well. It's very, very subtle. It reminds me of Wink of Stella. If you've ever used Wink of Stella, I found that really subtle as well. I use this in a lot of my projects. I just find it a bit easier to use than, glitter glue and that sort of thing. And you can see it adds a really nice touch there. So I want to add the bow just to that top corner of the journal card. For these projects, I'm using my Helmar Tacky Glue and my Helmar 450 glue. They're always my go-to glues. Tacky glue is great for the smaller little pieces. My lace scraps, I must do some little lace scrap projects, I think, to empty that out a bit. That's not all my lace scraps either. That's just the really tiny bits that I haven't put away yet or anything. Sit in that until it gets too big and then they go into a bigger tub. I'm just finding a nice little piece that I think will look nice on the bottom of my journal card. And I'll just ink that a little bit because it's a bit too clean. Now I've printed the journal card 4 to a page, so it should fit very nicely into my little envelope. So I've got this little label there and I thought I'd stamp a number stamp onto it. That stamp set is a Witchcraft Do You Do stamp set from the lovely Kerry Fellows. Now I decide I can stick together my little envelope. Just getting the embellishment pieces I want to use and putting them together on the front of the envelope just to see how it's all going to look together. And, get the placement right, that sort of thing. Now, I have some of this cheesecloth that's been dyed. That, again, came from the lovely Kerry Fellows. She gave me a pile of different coloured cheesecloth, and I love it because you can find a colour that suits every project. So handy. So I'm using a bit of that for both my envelopes today. I'm going to use that little strip as my little envelope closure. Again, just figuring out the placement of my pieces. And I drag out my plethora of postage stamps. I have so many postage stamps. Thought I'd grab a few out to use for this. You can find so many different colours. It's great fun finding the ones that go nicely with your project. So I stick the cheesecloth to my little picture first. Just use my tacky glue for that. I can start sticking down my postage stamps. I always have everything looking really nice, and then when I stick it down, it doesn't look that good because I move things a little bit. It's like, that's not where I wanted it, but it still turned out looking pretty cool, I think, for me. So I thought the envelope was a bit too neat, so I grabbed my splatter stamps. I think they're Kaiser Craft splatter stamps, and just doing some sort of stains with my walnut stain ink. And then I use my 450 glue to stick down the cheesecloth picture. So I do change the glues up a bit. That's why I thought I'd explain that I'm using the two separate ones. The tacky glue is a bit wet, so if you use it for big bits of paper and that, it can warp. So it's good to use a 450 for that. Now, off camera, because I forgot to press the record button, I did stick the roses there to that little airmail label, just to get it positioned where I want it. And again, now I'm just doing some of my splatter stamps. I wanted some on the little envelope as well as the big one, so I stamped it first on the big envelope and then put the little envelope down to get the partial stamp onto that. Then I can stick down my flower and label there. Yes, my glue is a bit of a funny colour there because my pen is not a stainless steel pen and it keeps rusting into that bottle. So I keep squirting out rust-coloured glue. Must fix that one day. Now to stick my little envelope down, and I'm just doing the 3 edges, leaving the top open so that we can tuck something down behind the envelope. Trying to match up my stamping there. So I've got a postmark stamp there that I want to put on, and I'm using my black archival ink for that. Finding some ephemera pieces that I can slip into my little tuck spot. Stick my little journal card in the envelope. Now to attach my closure, so I will just put glue on both the little ends there, leaving the middle open. Then we can tuck the top of the envelope into it to hold it closed. Now I can stick my little flowers down. So I have this little note there, and I thought, oh, that'd be nice behind my journal card in the envelope. Has a little secret note. Then I've just got another little ephemera piece that I'll add to finish off the front of this envelope. I have this postcard piece that's been printed full size, and I'm going to back that onto some old book page. Let that dry really well, and then I can cut that out, which I didn't do. I didn't let it dry really well, so the fussy cutting was a little rough. But we can pretend that I did let it dry really well, and hopefully you won't notice that my cutting's really rough. Now I'm trimming around the border part on this so that it will fit nicely into the big envelope. Ink around all the pieces so you don't notice my bad cutting. And I always ink front and back. Then I decide that I will add a little scrappy notepad to this with some of my scrap papers. It uses up some of my scrap papers, which is always a good thing. And B, it just adds so much more writing space to this project. So I've got an old book page there that has some sticky tape stains, which I thought was pretty cool. I have a set of drawers next to me where I throw all my scraps when I've finished a project, and so I always go through that first when I'm looking for pieces like this. Then I thought I'd grab an embellishment piece to put on top as well, and I like the look of that postcard on the top. I ink around the edges of all my papers, just makes them stand out a little more. Line all my papers up in the order that I want them. And add them to the back of the postcard. And I'm just using my tiny attacher stapler to attach it together. Then you can just flip up all the pages to write on. And you can write on both sides of them. Just bash my staple down a bit to flatten it out. Then again, I thought I'll use up some of my plethora of postage stamps. I'll have to show you my collection sometime. I think you'll be shocked. I am whenever I look at it. It's almost as bad as my collection of books. Then I grab another embellishment piece just to put on the bottom to finish it off. I love using the Kings and Queens stamps because you can get every colour under the sun of those. That fits neatly into my envelope. So now I'm moving on to Natalie's kit. I have the envelope there. I haven't stuck it together. It's open at the moment, and I've got a piece of cream vellum. And I'm just measuring where I'd like to cut it to make a pocket for the front of the envelope there. Just used a pencil to draw a line, and I'm cutting within that line now. I want to see the blue border of the envelope. I don't want to cover that, so I just sort of measured it to fit on the inside of that border. Next, I have these die cuts that I cut ages ago for a project. I had a whole lot of blue ones, and I thought they'd go really nice with this, so I want to do a stack of those on the front of my vellum. Just seeing how they look at the moment. There's this label, which I think will sit really nicely over the top of those as well, so I'll fussy cut that out. Now I'm ripping this bird stamp out. I've got a serrated edge there from a pack of alfoil or something, and it's stuck to that big ruler, so I can use it to get the perforated edge on things. My first rip wasn't very good, but the rest turned out good. I haven't used it for ages, so it takes a bit to remember how to use it to work efficiently. Now, I was going to add this bird here, but when I put it all together, I completely forgot. But I do use him somewhere else. So there you can see I've got another bit of Kerry's Awesome dyed cheesecloth. Just cutting a bit of that out to put under my label. Next, I want to do some heat embossing on my vellum. I think I've only tried this once and I smudged it a lot, so I'm trying to be a bit light-handed with my pressing down on my stamp. So I'm using my Versamark watermark? Is that what it's called? Oh, yes, it is Versamark. It's ink pad to do the stamping, and then I've got a blue embossing powder to do the embossing, and it turned out really cool just using a postmark stamp there. So now I'm tacking my pocket down to the front of my envelope firstly with my tacky glue before I sew around the envelope. I want to stamp on my little label, and I have a stamp set which is Elizabeth Craft Designs, and it is Correspondence from the Past. And I've used that to grab a few stamps out of for the front of that label. From memory, I got that from Witchcraft Do You Do Too. And again, just tacking on my cheesecloth. Now you can see I've done a zigzag stitch around my envelope. I did that with my big and my small envelope. And now that that's been done, I can close up my envelopes. Just checking that I haven't stuck it together, which I had. So I'd stuck the flaps down to the inside front of the envelope. So it's a good always to check that. So just trying to get the placement of my flowers where I want it. And again, I thought it looked really, really cool, but then when I go to do it again, I have it placed differently and it doesn't look as good. But I still really love the way it worked. So trying just to put a fine bit of glue onto the back of these so it doesn't spread out onto my vellum, which would look very messy. And then I forgot that the top of the flower is going to stand up, isn't it, past the vellum, and it has glue on it. I don't want it to stick down to the envelope, or that will close my pocket. So I'm using my grease-proof paper there just to stick under the top of the flowers so they don't stick to the envelope. Now I can stick down my label and cheesecloth. Now, I like the look of the wispy bits of cheesecloth sticking up in that, but they are just going to fall apart bit by bit and there won't be much cheesecloth there. So I do go along with a real fine dab of my tacky glue and just press them down a little bit so that they don't come apart so easy. There's still a few wispy bits. Now I have this beautiful, I think it's a postcard piece, backing that again onto some old book page. And that will be the piece that I can slip into my vellum pocket. Now I'm leaving that to dry properly, and I've decided to decorate the front of the envelope more. So I'm going to stick down this beautiful picture of these people. And so when we put our little journal card in the front pocket, it will hide these. And then when you pull it out, they will be revealed. So I decide they're a bit too neat, so I'm ripping them down a bit. Also, it's going to help hide them under the journal card that I slip in. Just ripping down and making it look a bit grungy. Inking around the edges. I have a little strip of pianola paper from my scraps and I'm going to stick that underneath as well. And I nearly forgot because I'm measuring out where I'm going to put this, but I completely forgot I've got postage stamps I want to put on there. It's an envelope, it needs postage stamps. So I grab those and ink around them and stick them down first because I want them to sit underneath my little picture. Then again, it's a bit too clean, so I grab my splatter stamps and have a bit of fun. So I want to add a stamp to my journal card also, but I didn't like the way it looked as a full stamp, so I just ripped it down a bit. And yes, I will keep the little bit that I ripped off. I'm sure I can find a use for that. I love junk journaling. You can just use anything and everything. And so I keep anything and everything. Oh my goodness, my house is full of it. So yes, add a splatter stamp to that journal card as well. Now, I was looking for some music paper to add somewhere, and then I saw that there was this scrappy bit in the kit, so that's perfect. So I cut that out, but the cut's a bit smooth for my liking, so I have ripped it. It is sort of ripped on the digital anyway. It's just when you cut it out, it makes it all smooth. So I thought if I rip it, then it will look a lot better, and I'll stick that to the back of my journal card just for an extra bit of embellishment. My birds look good there, but I thought, no, I reckon I can find another use for them elsewhere. And then I wanted to add this ticket somewhere, so I decide that I'll just attach it to the journal card. Why not? So I'm using my crocodile just to put a little hole in that and then another hole in the journal card. And then I'll use an eyelet just to attach them together. I think that's the front of that one done. Now for my extra little envelope. It was going to go on the front, and then I decided I was doing a vellum pocket and there wasn't really much room for it. So I figure I will try and attach it to the back. So you can see I've just stuck the pocket together. Now I've got this embellishment piece and I think I'll rip that down just to make it a little bit smaller. Then I'm going to stick my birds onto that because they'll fit really nicely, and I like the number underneath. And I remembered that I do have some little wispy bits of cheesecloth hanging around, so I might as well use up some of my scraps, and that can go underneath the birds. So it fits very nicely on the envelope there. Then I think, oh, I can make that into a little tuck spot as well. So again, I'm just sticking down the three sides and leaving the left-hand side open to slip things in. It's funny how you start these projects with an idea in mind and then you just keep adding things because you're on a roll. It's very easy to get a bit too carried away and add too much stuff. So there's a couple of little tickets and I thought I would stick them in. I didn't bother punching the holes in this one. I don't think I have a punch that small. And if I try to stick my awl through there, I'll probably just break it. So I'm just leaving those. And then there's a stamp printout from Natalie's kit. I was going to use that elsewhere, but it didn't quite go, but it goes really nicely here on this envelope with what I'm doing. Again, I just rip a bit and rough it up a little bit up the top there. Then I'm using the Witchcraft Do You Do stamp set again. I think that's the documented stamp set to add a postmark. That finishes it off really nicely. I decide I want to put something down underneath the envelope. And there's this sort of cluster piece that's a part of the embellishments in Natalie's kit. So I decided to rip that out and put that there. Just figuring out where to put it so that it looks appealing when you open it up. So the little flap sort of fits nicely on the flap from the big envelope. And I do just glue down the two sides, so there again it makes a little tuck spot in the top, which I will fill up in a minute. So I'm just cutting out this piece. Then I have another smaller piece, which I'll be putting in the top there. That little piece was just printed onto copy paper, so it's a bit thin. So I'm backing it onto some of the cardstock and letting it dry before I cut it out. And then I've got this postcard and receipt that I'm going to back onto Old Book Page. And I'll let them all dry before I cut them all out. So again, this envelope flip's going to add so much more journaling space to the page that I put it on. So those bigger pieces can fit into my big envelope there. I stick that little ticket piece into my little tuck spot. And that's both my envelopes done. Now here are my two creations that I've made with the envelopes with Tracy's and Natalie's kits. So firstly, I used Tracy's kit. Now I decided to do flip out pockets for journal pages with my envelopes. So with this one, it would sit on a page like so. And I would stick this part down, or it would sit over the top of a page. And you'd be able to flip it up like this. So on the front, I've just decorated it with some of the awesome decorations from the kit. Bit of my cheesecloth. Then I did downsize a lot of the embellishments and the envelope again. And I turned the envelope around to make this little pocket here. And in there, I put this little journal card with a bit of lace and one of the beautiful bows. You did see me highlight some of the pieces with my gel pen as well. Now I've got the little meet me at 7 in there as a hidden little note, bit sneaky. So that just slips in there, and then we can close the envelope off like that. And then behind the envelope is a little tuck spot where I've put another little journal card. So this is like a postcard, I think. And I've used that as a little journal card, and I've used this again in the big envelope. But I just cut around it a bit. So that slips in there. And then I've got these two little pieces. Now I did back some of my pieces like the envelope and some of the ephemera pieces with some tea-dyed paper that I just printed on the back of the papers. Photocopied tea-dyed paper that I had here. Although I used the wrong printer setting and it does have lines in it, but that doesn't matter. There's always something. So yes, you'd flip that up, and then we've got the postcard in here, and you take that out. And then I made that into a little scrappy notebook here. So this would add heaps of journaling space to a page. You can journal on the other side of the envelope. You can decorate that if you like. You can journal on the inside of the envelope. We've got all the journal cards, and we've got the scrappy notepad. That's got another piece of the ephemera. And then I used just some of my scrap papers and some of my postage stamps to decorate that. So lots and lots of writing space in that one. And that just slips in there. So I just cut the edge off around the border there, and that fits in the envelope really nicely then. So that's my first envelope flip. It's great fun. There were some stamps I know in Natalie's kit that I could have used, but I have so many postage stamps that it was really good to be able to get using some of those. So my second envelope flip I used Natalie's kit for, and it had a lot of blue tones in it, so I ran with that. So this one I would put over a page sideways like this, and it would open that way like that. So on the front I did a vellum pocket, and I did some heat embossing with the postcode there. And I've used a label from the kit, used some of my flower dies. And I've got this gorgeous photo, and I've got some pianola paper behind that, and some more of my postage stamps to decorate. Then I used this postcard piece, another postage stamp, and I put this ticket on there. I just used an eyelet to hold it on. I was going to make it a dangle, but I thought I'd just put it on like that. You can always turn it around if you want to. And a bit more of the kit there. I was looking for some music paper in my scrap pile, and then I realised there was this little scrap piece of music paper in the kit, so that worked perfectly. And that just slips into this little vellum pocket. So I did do a bit of sewing just around the envelopes on this one. So this would go around a page like so. So that would be the one side, and it would flip open like that. And that would be the other side. So it'd be quite sort of heavy, so you'd want a nice thick page to put this on. So here's the little envelope here. Now what I'd probably do is if I put it onto a page, I might put a little closure thing here that I can turn around and hold it down with. It depends. I don't think it would bother me too much, but if you're bothered about it flipping up like that too much and being a bit bulky, you could put a little stopper on to hold it down. So that's a little envelope, and I've used a number of the kit embellishments, and then it's a little tuck spot in behind the birds there, and I've put these little tickets in. So I downsized some of the ephemera pieces to use for this, including the envelope, so I could have a big one and a little one. And that flips up like that and has this little journal card in. So again, heaps of extra writing space in this little project to add to your journal page. Little receipt in there. And then it's a little tuck spot in there. I've got these two pieces. You could, of course, embellish a lot more, the envelope and these pieces. Could add a dangle to this if you wanted to. But I could have kept going forever. As it was, I just got lost and kept going and sticking things down. So there comes a time when you just got to go step away from the project and that and finish your video, or else it's going to end up 10 hours long. In the end, I did, as you saw, speed it up and do a voiceover anyway, just to cut out all the bits where I wasn't doing much, or else it would have been a good few hours long. So, and then when you flip this open like so, in there I've just stuck a couple of the embellishment pieces for journaling on, and I have backed those with some old book page. That makes a really cool big journaling space as well. So heaps and heaps of extra journaling space. So I had so much fun making these. Yeah, just a nice little project, heaps of ephemera to use, lots and lots of fun. You just cut it all out and then have fun just sticking down whatever you think looks good. So I hope you'll get involved. Remember to add the hashtag. Go and check out Tracy's and Natalie's channel so you can see how they've started it all off. And the links below are to the Ko-fis for both of the hosts, so you can grab each of the kits if you'd like to. So thanks heaps for watching. Take care of yourselves and happy crafting. Bye.